Hi everybody, welcome back to another Once Upon a Point video. If you're new, which I have a bunch of new subscribers, welcome to my channel. I know I haven't posted a video in a while. I'm working on another bar for you guys. Bars are just trickier to film right now, but it is coming soon, hopefully next week. I've been teaching a lot online, which I'm still doing. If you want to join us, I will link that in the box below. I've been doing live online group classes, private lessons, the whole thing. So if you want to, I've linked that in the box below. But Once Upon a Point videos are where I tell you stories of my time dancing professionally. And this is probably one of the most requested stories. And that is to tell you about dancing Princess Aurora in the Sleeping Beauty for the first time. And I'm really excited about this one. You guys have been asking for it for a while, so here we go. So the last one that we did was me getting promoted to soloist at New York City Ballet, which if you missed, I will link in a card and below, the famous fake out. This story happens around that one. So if you missed it, you might want to go watch it because that happens in between. So it was May of 2009. I was 20 and I think we had just started our spring season at New York City Ballet. And it was announced that there was going to be pretty much the last week of the season, this gala called Dancer's Choice. And it is a show where one of the principal dancers puts together the entire evening. They pick the program, they cast it, they rehearse it. It was sort of a way of training a principal dancer of how to be a director and how to put together a program. Ironically, the year before, the program was put together by Jonathan Stafford, who is now the artistic director of New York City Ballet. And so this particular year in 2009, Jennifer Ringer, who was a principal at the time, was in charge of putting together the evening and doing all of it. Now she, of course, is the head of the Colburn School. So it had a purpose. After that year, nothing really came of it. I don't know what happened. I don't know why it ended, but it did. We never did it again, but in 2009, we did that gala. So the programming towards the start of the spring season came out, and one of the things on the program was the wedding pas de deux from Sleeping Beauty. There was a bunch of other things. I can't exactly remember what it was. I believe Valse Fantasy was on there because Tyler Peck ended up doing that. And I think she was either right before me or right after me. That's how I remember that. So I remember that she did Valse Fantasy. But so the programming came out and it was on the, on the thing was wedding pas de deux. So of course, everybody wanted to do it. And I was not a soloist yet. This was May. I was promoted to soloist in October. So I didn't think anything. You know me. I'm always the one who is, instead of assuming I'm going to get something, I'm assuming I'm in trouble. Like Juliet for the first time or getting promoted. Yeah. So I just was sort of going along like, okay. Casting went up and there it was. Morgan and Angle. Me with Tyler Angle, who I've done many videos on here dancing with. I did Sleepy Beauty with him. I did Juliet with him. I'll link our wedding pas de deux in the card. It was it from the full length, but if you want to see us do it, it's up there. So, needless to say, I was ecstatic and terrified and what is this? So I remember we started rehearsals and Sean Lavery, my wonderful mentor while I was at New York City Ballet, he's unfortunately no longer with us, but he rehearsed me in everything, Juliet, Sugar Plum, everything. So he was our ballet master. And he walked in the first day and he's like, guys, this is really exciting. And we were just sort of like, all right. And so I remember doing it with him and literally a week later, I think we probably had 3 weeks before the show that we rehearsed this thing. And it was a one night only gala, like one and done. So make it good. Literally a week after we started rehearsing, the following season's ballets were announced. So like the 2009 to 2010 season was announced. And on the winter season lineup was 2 weeks of Sleeping Beauty. So needless to say, it was sort of like, okay, Katie, this is your test. And I remember Sean coming in rehearsal and going, did you see the lineup? And I was like, uh-huh. And he was like, something to think about. And that was code for don't mess up, basically. Like, this is your one shot to show everybody. So Tyler and I rehearsed and we were ready. And I remember, as often was Peter's MO, he would come in and he'd sit and he'd watch and he'd leave and he didn't really say anything. And I was sort of didn't know where I stood with him. And then my mom and I ended up at some party one night that was an engagement party. I believe it was for the company photographer. And I happened to be the only dancer there. Why, I don't know. Peter was there, and he came over, and he took my hands, and he looked at my mom, and he said, "She was born to do Aurora." And I was like, "Nope." Like, okay. So my mom and I left the building. We still to this day remember, like, we had like pit stains. We were sweating. So it was just like, okay. So the gala night comes, and Tyler and I'll never forget it. We walk, I think we were like mid-program because, Wedding Pas de Deux is not exactly an opener, but it's not a closer. So I feel like we were maybe first after intermission or something. And I remember, we started on stage because it was just the Pas de Deux solos and coda. And the curtain goes up, and there's literally an audible gasp because of how, I don't know, I guess we looked good. I don't know. So I just remember hearing and then you could literally hear a pin drop. No one, it was silent throughout the entire Pas de Deux. And I went up for the last bing and then fish, and the place erupted. It was like a rock concert. And I think we were sort of looking at each other going, oh my gosh, okay. And he was like, I remember him saying, bow slowly. So we bowed slowly so he could breathe. So then I slowly walked off, and we did our thing. And it was a huge success. That night was a huge success. And I just remember getting a lot of accolades for it. And I knew at that point that I had put my name into the hat for Aurora for the following winter, because it was going to be a really big deal. I mean, Sleeping Beauty, you guys, is to me, the role. Like, if you get cast to do it, you've made it, because it is, without a doubt, the most beast of a ballet on the planet. Great debate, Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty. Having done both, Sleeping Beauty is like far and away more terrifying, far and away scarier, far and away more difficult. I mean, yeah, Black Swan, you do the fouettes, but honestly, Sleeping Beauty's hard because it's all technique and there's literally no story. Like, Aurora's biggest problem is that she's asleep. Like, the conflict happens around her. So literally you're out there going, and like there's no story. It's just pure steps in a tutu. And, Swan Lake, you get to run around and when in doubt, flap and look miserable. So Aurora's like, here I am in pink. See me do steps. So we went on break for the summer, came back. And during that sort of late spring Saratoga summer season, the ballet masters had been hinting at me, you need to prep for next year. Just be ready, just be ready, just be ready. And it was about a week before I got promoted. Casting went up to start in October to rehearse for February. For Sleeping Beauty was going in February, which for New York City Ballet is an obscene amount of time for rehearsals. October to February. I mean, I remember many a day where I got like, okay, learn the steps, do the dress, you're on. So having that amount of time was insane, but we all knew like it was looming, and there was 2 weeks worth of shows. We knew there were going to be maybe 5 to 6 casts for 2 weeks of shows. It ended up actually being 5. There were only 3 dancers left who had already done it. Sterling Hiltine, Ashley Bowder, and Megan Fairchild had done it the last time it went. So we knew 2 weeks of shows, there were maybe going to be 1 or 2 new Auroras. Well, casting went up or rehearsal schedule went up, and it was Morgan and Peck. So Tyler Peck and I, terrified, she's still a soloist, I'm still in the corps at this point. We get into the rehearsal room and we're like, oh my God. So I'm so happy that I had her to like go through this with, because, when it's a new Aurora, you have to start from scratch. The other 3 had done it before, so they didn't need to learn it. They already knew it. I mean, goodness knows. And so they were rehearsed separately from Tyler and I. So Sean Lavery and Meryl Ashley took us into the studio and started from the beginning, which, by the way, is known as Jaws. The music where you come running out, I'll play it right here, sounds like Jaws, number 1, the score. Number 2, it's like basically like you're running to your death. You feel like you're running to your death, and you're like, here we go. So we started from Jaws. Step 1, you run out, and you go down the stairs, pas de chat, And I just remember after that first rehearsal, Tyler and I were just sort of like, like, are we really going to do this? And I remember thinking, okay, it was what I tell you guys all the time. They are having me learn this ballet. Clearly, someone thinks that I am capable of this, because I'm telling you, it is terrifying. You come out of the gate and it does not end until after that first act. I mean, it is like, it's a beast. So Tyler and I were like dying, you know, getting through this together. And we didn't know who our princes were going to be because, let's be honest, the prince doesn't do a lot in Sleeping Beauty. Sorry, guys, you don't. You don't come on till Act 2. So we had no idea who our princes were going to be. I assumed it was going to be Tyler since I had already done it, Tyler Angle, since I already done it with him. But anyway, so Tyler and I had probably months just by ourselves because, you know, even the Rose Adage, you can just get 4 boys who already know it in the room. You know, it's sort of, you're on your own a lot of the time. All those solos, the whole vision scene. And then I would say about a week and a half later is when I got promoted to soloist and she got promoted to principal. So that was a little sort of, okay, here's another little like encouragement that you could do this. So that helped a lot. And it's ironically, there were only 5 of us doing it and I was the only soloist. It was Megan, Ashley, Sterling, Tyler, and me. And they were all principals and I was a soloist. So I knew I was low man on the totem pole, but I really didn't care. So time went on and I remember Meryl and Sean, like it was every day. It was constant every day. I had never rehearsed for something so much in my entire life. Like it was day after day after day after day. Even if it was only an hour, we worked on something every single day. And I remember my feet were raw. I remember even like Meryl and Sean like pulled us back a bit because Tyler and I were doing, you know, a bunch of stuff. And it was just, you just simply can't rehearse that ballet over and over. But we did something every day. Well, come November, right around Nutcracker, I was about to do Nutcracker. I'm in rehearsal for Who Cares? I'm supposed to do Pink Girl. Man, I love Girl. And ironically, our cast was going to be me, Tyler, and Sterling with Robbie Fairchild. And I'm in the middle of that solo. She does like PK turn, big hop and Alyssa and around. Crunch. Sprained my ankle. Ligaments torn, out. Robbie's in the room, across the room, and sees me go down, hears the whole thing, and comes running over and literally carries me out of the room. I couldn't walk. I could not walk. This was November, and we were going to do this in February. So I knew I had a little time. And it was sprained, and I was out all of Nutcracker. And I just remember thinking, how much rehearsal time am I going to lose for this part? Because, again, it's a beast. And at that point, I think we had finally started rehearsing the Wedding Pas de Deux, and I knew I was going to dance with Tyler. Luckily, we had already performed the Wedding Pas de Deux in that gala. So I was like, okay, at least Act 3 is pretty solid for me. I've already done it. So that was like a huge, huge relief having already done Act 3, especially with a sprained foot. So I went to every rehearsal and I sat there and I watched and I marked the arms and the whole thing. Meanwhile, Nutcracker went, and then I think we got a little couple of weeks time off, and I was able to come back. I think towards the end of Nutcracker, I started doing bar. I never ended up on stage for Nutcracker, but I started doing bar. Because I was bound and determined. I was like, I am not missing Aurora. I don't care if I do anything else all season. I'm not missing Aurora. Well, come to find out, the season lineup of the winter 2010 season was literally every classical ballet known to man. And I was, and I quote, the classical specialist of New York City Ballet. Like some people are like black and white ballets. Some people are modern pieces. Katie Morgan was the classical specialist. So my winter season lineup leading up to Aurora was Juliet, was Swan Lake. I didn't do Odette Aurora that time. I mean, Odette Odile that time, but I did like Pas de Trois, Pas de Quatre. Literally, Scotch Symphony, like all these classical ballets were in the lineup of winter season. So it wasn't just going to be this pretty package of Aurora and we'll prepare and you'll be ready and it'll be great. Oh no. Oh no. It was going to be every classical ballet. I was on every night. And then big ones like Juliet, another full length. So I was rehearsing Juliet and Aurora at the same time. And just praying that my foot held up, which it did. I also that season debuted the second ballerina in Ballet Imperial, which is the other hardest ballet on the planet. It's also called Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto No. 2, but it's more widely known as Ballet Imperial. And it is another like 35, let's put all of Aurora into 35 minutes, basically. Another beast of a ballet. So between that and Juliet and Scotch and like, it's just like, let's kill Katie Morgan before she goes and does Aurora. So it was a big season that I had to pace myself. And thankfully, I think what really helped me is I didn't do Nutcracker because I wasn't kind of beat up by the time we got there. So I got back and I started doing bar and I started doing these things. And I did not end up doing Who Cares because I remember Peter coming to a Who Cares rehearsal. And it was a, once you've sprained something doing a role, once you've, you pull back. I was struggling through it. And he said, look, you have a huge season. Let's pull you out of this. And he's like, I need you for Aurora. And I was like, okay. So I never ended up doing Who Cares. I ended up doing Turning Girl later on, but that's another story. I never did pink. I did blue. So we get to, it's time for the season. Juliet goes. That's the season. I think I might have talked to you in full length Romeo and Juliet story that Robbie and I got thrown on together for Romeo with like 3 hours notice. We'd never done it before. Literally the day I'm rehearsing Aurora, they come to me and they're like, your partner's out. You're going to be on tonight with Robbie. Figure it out. It was a crazy season. So what ended up happening, thankfully, that's ended up saving me, as you'll see in a second, something that was very rare for New York City Ballet. My Aurora dress rehearsal, Sleeping Beauty dress rehearsal, was going to be like the Friday before I debuted on a Wednesday. It was like literally 5 days before, which is never happens. Usually it's day of or day before. Like for whatever reason, they were like, well, due to scheduling and due to, because we have to be able to rehearse 3-act, your dress rehearsal is going to be like 5 days early. I was like, okay, fine, no big deal. Dress rehearsal day comes. We're excited. It's happening. Foot's feeling great. We get through Act 1. We get through Vision pas de deux, running off the stage from the Vision scene variation. You know the tape that holds down the Marley, the flooring? If you don't know, special flooring for ballet, in the wings, it's taped down with this special tape that tends to, over time, start to peel. Katie Morgan's running off from Vision variation, running off the stage. Shu catches the tape, re-sprains the ankle, completely bites it. Tyler's behind me, like Tyler Angle catches me, cannot move, cannot walk, cannot finish dress rehearsal. They literally have to cut me out of my shoes. They have to literally cut the ribbons to get me out of my pointe shoes because I was sewn in. And I was like determined to go back, and they were like, nope. And so they cut my ribbons. And I did not end up finishing my dress rehearsal for Aurora. I only got halfway through Vision scene. So there I am 5 days before with a purple softball-sized right ankle, which of course, it is the Rose Adagio leg. You know, the leg you balance on. Of course, it had to be that leg. Couldn't be the other leg. Had to be the one you have to balance on. Yeah. So here we are. They cancel the rest of dress rehearsal. I ended up I had another part in Sleeping Beauty. I was going to debut second week. First week I was like the silver fairy and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I was so wrong for that, but that's another story. They took me out of that. I was going to do one of the fairies. They took me out of that. They were like, we want to save you for this. Because we had been building up to this. I had done Dancer's Choice and gotten amazing reviews. So my Aurora debut was going to be a really big deal. And so they said, see how you are over the weekend. And then we'll make a decision. Because I was like, I'm not going to be able to do it, but I want to do it. They're like, hold on. See how you are over the weekend. Thank the Lord I had the 5-day gap. Because if this had happened the day before, I wouldn't be able to dance. So come that Tuesday, I had another stage rehearsal. I had done every physical therapy, icing, chiropractor, you name it, I did it. It was like a weekend of physical therapy. Tuesday, I was fine. It was still a little purple, still a little sore, but I was like, you know what? Peter came to the rehearsal, Sean came to the rehearsal, and I was passed. I was like, okay, you're fine. You're still going to debut Wednesday, Thursday, whatever day it was. But the other problem was that I said, well, I never finished my dress rehearsal. And they were like, sorry, no time. So I ended up doing my debut of Aurora, not having ever finished a dress rehearsal. But what saved me was the Dancer's Choice show because I'd already done Act 3 on stage. So that was okay. They were like, well, you did the pas de deux last year and you'll be fine. So yeah, I ended up doing my debut of Aurora without a complete dress rehearsal. So that was slightly terrifying. But the show went great. I mean, I have never been more nervous for something in my entire life than I was for that. You know, it's funny, I don't usually get nervous. And Peter would always joke to me about that. You know, he'd come backstage like, you're not nervous, are you? And I'd be like, no. Like before Juliet, he's like, you're not nervous? No. Before Aurora, he comes back stage and he goes, you're nervous, aren't you? And I was like, because that prologue, you guys, if you ever do this part, that prologue goes on and on and on, and you feel like, okay, we can like get this show on the road, please, because all the fairies, and then the pot of cease, and then Caraboss, and then not only that, then you have the garland dance, which anytime I hear that garland waltz music, it's like complete terror, because it is right before Jaws. Yeah, it's kind of like Waltz of the Flowers when you do Sugar Plum, like you know you're next sort of thing. So garland dance for me will forever give me nightmares. But the show went fine. My foot held up. Everything was good. And what was really hard about New York City Ballet's Sleeping Beauty is that there's only one intermission. So Aurora does not stop from Act 1 till after Vision Scene. It is like, I've never been so tired in my life. And I had the PT, our PT was in my dressing room in between entrances, making sure my foot was good. Like, you have no time to think. And basically, it's all the same amount of dancing that's usually 3 acts condensed into 2. So we made it through. Second show, the foot gave up a little bit, and I did have to releve on the rose-adage balances, the last ones. But, you know, it was glorious. The thing that really helped get me through it, that I've always remembered in my entire career, you know, a lot of people have had issues with Peter Martins and had issues with him, and I cannot speak for them. I know I did a video on it, but he was nothing but lovely to me. So he said, you know, you look nervous, aren't you? Or you're nervous, aren't you? And I said, yeah. And he said, he looked at me, he took my hands, he said, I want you to remember something. He's like, you might be made to dance Juliet. He's like, you might be a Juliet. He's like, but you are Aurora. And even now, the hair just stands up on the back of my neck. He's like, this role is who you are. He's like, you're a queen. Remember that. And I've never forget that. You are Aurora. And so that was like, right there, I was like, okay, I'm good. I can releve my balances, it's fine. Because what he was basically saying to me was, remember, like, who you are, but also it's not just about the tricks. Like, my Aurora was never the trickiest. Like, Ashley Bowder can balance without the boys. Like, the fourth boy didn't even go around for her. Like, she's amazing. Tyler can turn like a top and is technically flawless. For me, I was not the most technically perfect one. I didn't have the best balances. But I told that story, and I was, you know, I was her. And so that's sort of how I got through it, because I was very aware, especially rehearsing with Tyler. She's a phenom. She can do anything. She can spin on her head and do 18 pirouettes and balance like with no help. And I was very intimidated. But it was that moment where it was like, yeah, that's not what your Aurora is about. Like, you do what your Aurora is. Which was for me telling the story. And I felt so at home in that wedding pas de deux. That was always for me the best part. Like, for getting through Act 1, once I got past that first solo, which is, first of all, it's like 3 days long. And if we could just cut that solo, I would have been fine. You're like, all right, really? If we could cut that solo, I would have been happy. But getting past Act 1, I was like, okay, I'm home free now. Like, Vision is pretty and fluffy, and then Wedding Pas de Deux, I felt like I could do that with my eyes closed, because I've done so many shows of that. So for me, it was just the Act 1 that was a beast. But remembering, and this is something I want you guys to know, that you don't always have to be the trickiest or the most impressive or whatever. That was not what my Aurora was about. If you wanted to go to Sleeping Beauty and see the amazing balances, the amazing technique, the amazing dancing, go see Bowder, Megan, Tyler, all of them. But I'm the one that was different, and I'm the one that made it me. So you don't have to be cookie cutter, is what I'm trying to say. I am not a technical specialist, and I still got to do this part. So it doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to be flawless. It's terrifying role, but it's about who you are, and that's for any role you do, you guys. And so that season was really, really special for me. That role was very special for me. Tyler and I ended up gigging it, as you've seen here. I've probably done that and Juliet more than anything else. And each time I do it, it's more and more, you know, something out of it. It is absolutely terrifying, though. If you ever get to do this part, good luck. it's if you can make it through Sleeping Beauty, you can make it through anything. You really can. So that is that story. Sprained ankle and all. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll keep these up. I know I haven't done these in a while. As I said, a bar is coming. It's going to be a bit of a challenging one, actually. If you've been taking class with me lately, you know what it is. Yeah, you know what it is. My regulars are going, great. Not what you think. For those of you who haven't been taking class with me, it's not what you think. I promise you it's going to be good. If you missed that video of me telling you the story of how I got promoted to soloist, it's right down there. You can click it to watch. Love you guys so much, and I'll see you next time.